Hello class, today we're going to take a look at our comparing fractions, decimals, and percents unit review. So first thing that we need to focus on is the different ways we can convert between a fraction and a decimal. If we're going from fraction to decimal, our first kind of option is that we can make the bottom 10, 100, or 1,000, or so on and so forth, in which case we can use the ideas of place value to create that decimal. We can use the same idea going back the other direction. We could also make the bottom a 9, 99, or 999, in which case we're going to have a repeating decimal. And our third option is to long divide, using those decimal ideas from our previous unit. So if we take a look at our first one here, we've got 0.22. The farthest right digit is in the hundredths place, and therefore 100 goes on the bottom. Our digits of our decimal, which are 22, go on the top. That is a fraction. It's not yet in lowest form. I do see that both of these numbers can divide by 2 because they are both even. And so I'm going to write in lowest form 11 out of 50. 11 is a prime number and therefore no longer is able to be simplified. Percent means out of 100. So any fraction that is out of 100, the top is just the percent. So if I look at my 22 out of 100, I can write that as 22 and replacing the out of 100 with the percent symbol. If I work back the other direction, if I start with 36%, I'm going to write that as 36 out of 100. Notice the percent sign gets replaced with out of 100. And based on that fraction, I can also write a decimal. Since 100 is on the bottom, I need to lay out spaces to get to the hundredths place, which is 2 spots after the decimal. And then I fill in my digits from right to left. So 0.36 is my decimal. Going back to my fraction, I can simplify this a little bit. So we'll start by dividing it by 2. 36 divided by 2 is 18, and 100 divided by 2 is 50. These are both still even numbers, so I'm going to divide by 2 again to continue simplifying, and I'm going to get 9 on the top and 25 on the bottom. There are no numbers that divide into both 9 and 25, so that is as simple as it gets. If we look at something like 6 out of 25, to convert it into a decimal, we need either 10, 100, or 1,000. I can't simplify this fraction at all, so instead I'm going to multiply it to make it bigger. I multiplied 25 by 4 to give me 100 on the bottom, and 6 times 4 on the top is 24. Since I have 24 out of 100, I know I'm going to have my hundredths place, which is 2 spots after the decimal. Fill in my digits from right to left, 4 and 2. As far as my percent goes, I have 24 out of 100. I'm going to write my top 24, and the out of 100 gets replaced with that percent sign. Next row down, we've got 16.5%. We're going to start in exactly the same way, replace the percent sign with out of 100. Now, it's not really acceptable to have a decimal on the top of our fraction, so we're going to go ahead and multiply by something to get rid of that decimal. For the purposes of my decimal itself, or my overall decimal number, I'm going to multiply by 10 to start off with. The reason I'm multiplying by 10 is because this 0.5 is in the tenths place. Multiplying by 10 will make it a whole number, 165. It's going to be 165 out of 1,000. So as far as our decimal goes, we're going to lay out places to the thousandths place. That is 3 places after the decimal. And our top is 5, 6, 1, and let's fill in our 0 before the decimal there. As far as our simplified fraction goes, we can just multiply this fraction here by 2. It'll give us 33 on the top and 200 on the bottom. There aren't any numbers that divide by both 33 and 200, so that's going to be our simplest form. 8%, we're going to start just as all the other percents. We're going to keep our 8, and instead of the percent sign, it's out of 100. We're going to go ahead and divide top and bottom by 2 because they're both even numbers. That gives us 4 out of 50. We can actually divide by 2 again, and that gives us 2 out of 25, which is our simplest form. Let's take our 8 out of 100. We need to lay out spots until we get to the hundredths place. Start filling in our digits on the right, and fill in any other places with zeros. So 0.08 is our representation of 8%. Continuing to move down, we've got 1 2/5. Remember, this is 1 whole plus 2/5. 2/5 is one of our memorized fractions. We know 2/5 is 0.4. So if I have 1 plus 0.4, my decimal is 1.4. As far as my percent goes, I can go ahead and think about an improper fraction for that 1 2/5. That would be 7/5 as an improper fraction. 5 plus 2 giving us that 7, obviously. And if I want to make that into a 100 on the bottom for my percent, let's just take this fraction over here. I'm going to multiply 5 by 20 to give me 100. I also therefore have to multiply 7 by 20. I get 140 out of 100, which is 140%. Percent replacing that out of 100. 0.48, the 8 is in the hundredths spot, so this is 48 out of 100. Let's simplify that fraction. We're going to divide by 2 since they're both even numbers. 48 divided by 2 is 24. 100 divided by 2 is 50. Let's divide by 2 again. We get 12 out of 25. I don't think there's any numbers that divide into both 12 and 25, so that is our simplest form. Let's also take our 48 out of 100, and we'll say that's 48%. Notice the percent sign, replacing that out of 100. 32.5%. Let's start by writing that as 32.5 out of 100. We're going to go ahead and multiply by 10 to get no decimal there on the top of our fraction. It's 325 out of 1,000. And we can therefore lay out places, get into the thousandths place. 5, 2, 3, filling in from left to right as our digits, and fill in our 0 there. 0.325 is our decimal. As far as our fraction goes, we can start with our original one there, multiply it by 2. That would give us 65 out of 200. Now that can still be simplified a bit. We can divide there by at least 5. Both digits end in a 0 or a 5. And that gives us 13 out of 40 as our simplest form. Of course, you could long divide there if you need to. Okay, 5 out of 8. This is a tricky one because it doesn't go into 10 or 100. We could multiply by 125. That will give us 1,000 on the bottom. And we'd have to multiply the top by 125 as well, which, if you work through your long multiplication, gives you 625 on the top there. Laying out our places to the thousandths place, we can fill in our digits, 5, 2, 6, and a 0. And that gives us our decimal there. As far as writing our percent goes, well, what do we do to 1,000 to make it into 100? I'm just going to rewrite that fraction. I'd have to divide it by 10. And so I'll divide this guy by 10 as well. 625 out of 10 is 62.5 out of 100. And we're going to replace that out of 100 with a percent sign. So 62.5%. Last one, we've got 1 1/12. As a starting fraction, we can say that's 1 12 out of 100. We can go ahead and simplify that fraction a little bit. I'll write it over here. I can definitely divide top and bottom there by 2, so let's do that. Be 1 6/50. And I can actually divide by 2 again. Gives me 1 3/25 would be my simplest form. I could also write that as an improper fraction. 1 times 25 is 25, plus 3 is 28 out of 25 would be the improper fraction there, and that would be in simplest form. As far as my percent goes, let's take this improper fraction, this mixed number, and make it an improper fraction. 1 times 100 is 100, plus 12 is 112 out of 100 as an improper fraction. Since we're out of 100, the numerator is our percent. All right, let's take a look. 37.5% is greater than 0.39. This would be 39 out of 100, which is 39%. 37 and a bit percent is not greater than 39%, so this one is false. 6 out of 25 is greater than 1 out of 4. Let's make a common denominator. I'm just going to go straight to 100 here. I get 24 out of 100 for 6 out of 25. And I'd get 25 out of 100 for my 1/4. 25 is greater than 24, so this statement is also false. 2/5, that is one of my memorized ones. It's 0.4. Is that less than 0.6? Yes, it is. And there's no relationship among fractions, decimals, percents. Obviously false. We've been working through those relationships this whole time. Moving to the next page, we want to compare the numbers and arrange them in ascending order. Ascending means going from smallest to largest. To compare numbers, we need to have them all in the same format. So let's start with 1/2. I'm going to multiply that by 5, top and bottom. Gives me 5 out of 10, which is 0.5 as a decimal. 60% is my next one. I'm going to write that as 60 out of 100, which gives me 0.60 as a decimal. 0.2 already is a decimal, and 2/5 is a memorized one. 2/5 is 0.4. I could also multiply top and bottom there by 2, get 4 out of 10, and therefore my 0.4. So if I arrange those from smallest to greatest, 0.2 is smallest, then 0.4, then 0.5, and then 0.6. So let's go ahead and arrange those using their original writing form. We've got our 0.2. Next we had 2/5. Number 3 we had 1/2. And number 4 we had 60%. That would be our answer from least to greatest, or ascending order. Next one wants descending order, and we want to, of course, write those in their original form. All these are decimals except for our 87.5%. We know this is 87.5 out of 100, which is 875 out of 1,000, multiplying by 10, which is 0.875 as a decimal, getting to the thousandths place, obviously. The other one that I don't have as a decimal right now is 5 out of 8. If we just think back, we earlier found out that 5 out of 8 is 0.625. So we can use that fact here in this next question. And let's go ahead and place those in descending order. We want the biggest one first, then working our way to smallest. So 0.875 is our biggest one here. Next is going to be 0.75. Next is our 0.625. And lastly, we have our 0.35 is our smallest one. So let's write those out in their original form. 87.5% is our biggest one. Next is our 0.75. Next was our 5 out of 8. And lastly, 0.375, all written in their original forms. Let's do the same type of thing in question 4. Going to choose to use decimals again for part A because all of them are easy to convert. 3/4 is one of our memorized ones. It's 0.75. 4/5 is also a memorized one, 0.8. Of course, if you forgot that, you could just multiply top and bottom by 2. You get 8/10, which is 0.8. 37.5% is 0.375. And again, you can get that from doing 37.5 out of 100, and then multiplying top and bottom by 10. 375 thousandths gets us to this decimal here. So we're on ascending order. We want smallest to largest. So our smallest one here is going to be 37.5%. Next smallest is going to be our 0.5. Next smallest is going to be our 0.75, which was 3/4. And lastly, our 0.8, which was 4/5. Next one, we've got 60%, 1.3, 1 and 1/3. 60% I know is 0.6, so that's definitely going to be smallest. 1.3 is a terminating decimal. And 1.1 and 1/3, excuse me, is 1.3 repeating, which is 1.3333. That is bigger than the other 1.3, which is 1.3000. Obviously, 3 is bigger than 0. So 1 and 1/3 would be our biggest one here. Lastly, we got our 62%. That one's really easy. 0.62 is its decimal form. 0.82 for 82%. 0.819 is going to be smaller than that because 1 is smaller than 2 in that hundredths place. And the only one that we have to kind of take a look at here is 7 out of 8. We could again multiply by 1,000 to get the multiply by 125 to make the bottom 1,000. Let's long divide this one though, just to practice that as well. I want to long divide 7 by 8, and remember that we have all these zeros here to help us out. So 8 goes into 7 0 times. 8 goes into 7D, I believe, what would it be? 8 times 6 would be, 48? 8 times 7 is 56. 8 times 8 is 64. So that's going to be our 8 times, leaving us with a 6, bring down a 0. From that, goes in 7 times, creating 56. Taken away leaves us with a 4, bring down a 0. And 8 goes into 45 times. Trace up our decimal. 0.875 is our decimal for 7/8. So if we take a look at that, 0.875 is obviously the biggest there, bigger than 0.81 and 0.82. So let's write them out. 0.819 is our smallest, 82% in the middle, and 7 out of 8 is our biggest. Write an equivalent fraction for each of these with the denominator of 10, 100, or 1,000. 4 out of 5, we're going to multiply by 2, get 8 out of 10. Ta-da! 16 out of 20. Have a couple options here. We could divide by 2, give us 8 out of 10. You could also multiply by 5 to get 80 out of 100. And 24 out of 200. Let's again divide that by 2. That'll give us 12 out of 100. Find a number that would go between the given fractions. We got 2/5. We got 3/5. To start out, 2.5 out of 5 would be between 2 and 3 out of 5. Now, I'm not allowed to have a decimal on the top of my fraction, so let's get rid of that. I'm going to multiply this by 2, and that'll give me 5 out of 10. So 5 out of 10 is a fraction that would go between those two fractions. I could, however, also simplify this. So let's get 1/2 is our fraction that would go between those two, which does make sense. 2 out of 5 is 0.4, or 40%. 3 out of 5 is 0.6, or 60%. So 50%, or 1/2, is between those two. Want to represent these fractions on the number line? First thing we have to decide is how we're going to set up our number line. If I look at the bottoms 2, 8, and 4, all of those can be multiplied to give me a denominator of 8. I could also use 4 here, you may notice. Okay, so let's go ahead and multiply to give us a denominator of 8. This is 1 and 4/8. 2 out of 8 already has a denominator of 8, and let's multiply this one as well. Gives me 14 out of 8. Now 14 out of 8, if I divide 14 by 8, I get a quotient of 1 and a remainder of 6 out of 8 for my mixed number form. So everything has a denominator of 8. I've got some numbers that are less than 1 and some numbers that are bigger than 1. So I'm going to go ahead and set up my number line going from 0 to 2. And since my denominator is 8, I know I need 8 total ticks as the space between 0 and 1. Remembering that we always start counting at 0. So we need 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and then 1 is the 8th tick. Continue that up to 2, so 1 would be 0 tick, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and then our 8th tick. Good. So let's go ahead and place some of these on our number line. We got 2 out of 8. We've got 1 and 4/8 here. So start at 1, go 4 out of 8 past that. Now I'm going to write it as its original form, which was 1 and 1/2. Next one is 7/4, which we said is 1 and 6/8. So start at 1, go 6 out of 8 past there. And the original form of that was 7/4, excuse me. So there is my number line. Again, you could also do this with a denominator of 4, in which case you'd have 4 ticks between whole numbers. All right, take a look at this next one. What number can I multiply 6, a 4, and a 2 by to equal? I could use 12 here. 6 times 2 is 12, 4 times 3 is 12, 2 times 6 is 12. The other thing I can do, though, is I can simplify this fraction here by dividing top and bottom by 3. Gives me 1 and 1/2. And now I'm going to use a denominator of 4, just to save myself some drawing time. So that's actually 1 and, let's write it over here, 1 and 2/4. We'll also multiply this one, top and bottom, by 2. That'll give us 10/4. And if we go ahead and make that into a mixed number, that's 2 and 2/4. 10 divided by 4, giving you a quotient of 2 and also a remainder of 2. So, all my numbers are bigger than 1 and smaller than 3, so that's how I'm going to set up my number line. Remember, since I don't have any numbers to represent between 0 and 1, there's no need to draw that section of the number line. If you do, it's fine, but it's not needed. Now I need 4 ticks between. One whole is made up of 4. One whole is made up of 4. So let's go ahead and place these on. Let's do our 1 and 2/4, which is actually 1 and 3/6. So starting at 1 and then 2 extra out of 4. Next, we're going to go ahead and do, what should we do next? Let's do 1 and 1/4 next. 1 out of 4 past location 1. And let's finish up by doing our 2 and 2/4, which is actually 5/2. So 2 and 2 out of 4 is right there. Next one, if I look at 10, 5, and 2, all those can be made into a denominator of 10. I can actually simplify this fraction as well, though. Get 6 out of 5. And that might be slightly easier as far as working with it. I'm going to go ahead and multiply this. Do I want that? Let's actually leave it as 10, because my 1/2 isn't going to be easy to do out of 5. So let's go ahead and change pace here. 4 out of 10, and 5 out of 10. Okay, everything's out of 10. I need 10 tick marks between whole numbers. This time I do have some between 0 and 1, and also some between 1 and 2. So let's go ahead and set those up. And I'm going to do 10 tick marks between whole numbers. So I'm going to go 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and then 10 would be on the next whole number. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and then 10 on the next whole number. Alright, so let's go ahead and put these onto our number line. This is 1 and 2/10 as a mixed number. So 2/10 past our whole number 1, labeling it with its original form there. 4/10, which is 2/5, is 4 ticks past 0. Whoops, let's label that using its original form. And then our last one here, 1/2, which is 5/10, is 5 ticks past 0. And again, I'll label that with its original form. All right, taking a look at this next one. I'm going to go ahead and think about what I can use for my common denominator here. 2.25, I know, is 2 1/4. 0.25 being one of our memorized decimal to fraction conversions. So 0.25 is 1/4. And if I look at all these bottoms, I can make them all into a denominator of 12. I already have a denominator of 12 here. I can simplify that down to a denominator of 6. However, I'm not going to be able to make my 4 into 6 very easily. So I might as well use 12 and just get right to it. My 8 out of 6, I'm going to multiply top and bottom, different color, by 2. That gives me 16 out of 12. And that is 1 and an extra 4 out of 12. Okay, 12 out of 12 being our 1, and then there would be 4 extra to make 16. My 2 1/4, I'm going to multiply top and bottom there, oops, that's messy, by 3 to make 12. 2 3/12 is my mixed number. And then my 2 2/12 already is out of 12. So I got one number between 1 and 2. I've got another 2 numbers between 2 and 3. So let's go ahead and set up our number line in that way. I'm going to put my arrows. I'm going to start with 1. Middle will be 2. Next will be 3. I need 12 divisions here between whole numbers. So trying to make them about evenly spaced. We got division 0 here, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and then 12 would be at the next whole number. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12 is at the next whole number. Again, your ticks should be approximately evenly spaced. Do your best that you can with it. Okay, so let's put these on. I'm going to start with my 1 4/12, starting at 1 and going 4 ticks past there. The original form of that number was 8 out of 6, so that's what I'll use to report it. My other two are past the location 2, so I got 2 3/12, which original form was 2.25. And then my last one, I've got 2 2/12, and the original form of that was, 2 2/12. Alright, last one on this page. If I take a look, I've got my 5 out of 12, my 1/3, and my 0.375. So that's going to be a little bit tricky to work with, that 0.375. I do know that all of these numbers are between 0 and 1. They're all less than 1 whole. So that's good. I see I can make the bottom of this into 12 by multiplying by 4. So that would match this fraction. So that would be a good start as well. My tricky one here is my 0.375. So let's think about that one. We know it's 375 out of 1,000 because of that thousandths place that we get to. And let's try to simplify that into something that we can work with. So let's start by dividing by 5. I do notice that both those numbers end in a 5 or a 0. Just going to do a kind of side calculation here of dividing 375 by 5. 5 goes into 3 0 times, 5 goes into 37 7 times, creating 35. Taking away leaves us with 2, bring down the 5. 5 goes into 25 5 times. So we get a quotient of 75 there. 1,000 divided by 5 is 200. These still both end in a 5 or a 0. So we could divide them by 5. I'm actually going to notice that both of these divide by 25 as well. So that's what I'm going to do. 75 divided by 25 is 3, and 200 divided by 25 is 8. So that is my simplest form of that fraction there, or that decimal. 0.375 is 3 out of 8. Now, if I think about 8, 12, and 3, the lowest common denominator I can use there is 24. I can multiply 8 by 3 to make a denominator of 24. So 9 out of 24. I can multiply my 12 by 2 to make a denominator of 24. Give me 10 out of 24. And I can multiply my 1/3 by 8 to make 8 out of 24. Luckily, I only have to do this for a space of 1 whole, because I have to draw my 24 ticks. Alright, so let's try to work kind of somewhat evenly here to have a hope of lining these up correctly. I could actually pretty much line them up with the 12s above it, because that is also divided into 24 equal sections. So let's say that. We got 0, we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 22, 23, and then 24. I guess I could space out that 23 a bit more. Okay, approximately even. Obviously, this guy here and this guy here are not perfect, but good enough. Okay, 24 ticks there. And let's go ahead and put our numbers on here. So we got 5 twelfths is 10 out of 24. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. There's our 5 twelfths. 1/3 is 8 out of 24. There we go. And then our 3 out of 8, which is 9 out of 24, is right here. And that guy there is 0.375. Okay, so a little bit trickier on that one because of that need of 24 divisions, and also that kind of strangeness with that 0.375, not a very common fraction. All right, finishing up, we want to represent each of these fractions as a mixed number, improper fraction, and decimal. So let's start. We got 2 and how many? Wait, whoops. We want to start with the 0 at our whole number. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 ticks to our next whole number. So A is whole number 2, and an extra 2 out of 8. That's a mixed number. Let's simplify that mixed number a little bit. We're going to get 2 1/4. That is our mixed number. 2 times 4 is 8, plus 1 is 9. So 9 out of 4 is our improper fraction. And as a decimal, I can take this, whoops, without erasing it, hopefully. 2 1/4 is 2, and then 1/4 is 0.25. I could also multiply this fraction to make its bottom 100, and I get the same 2.25 there as my decimal. I also want to do B there. B is 2 7/8. 7/8 is a little bit harder. That is a mixed number there. I can't simplify it at all. Writing it as an improper fraction, I'm going to go 2 times 8 is 16, plus 7 is 23 out of 8. And to get my decimal, I'm going to start with that 2 7/8. I'm going to long divide 7 by 8. Eight goes into 7 0 times. 8 goes into 7D 8 times, creating 64, taken away, leaves us with a 6 and a 0. 8 goes into 60 7 times, creating 56, taken away, leaves us with 4, bring down the 0, and 8 goes into 45 times. 0.875 is our decimal, except it's not 0. That. We've got 2 wholes, so 2.875 is our decimal. Next one here, let's work through. We've got 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 ticks between whole numbers. So C is 1 and 1 out of 6. D is 1 and 4 out of 6. And E is 2 and 2 out of 6. All right. We can simplify some of these a little bit. So let's simplify this one here, 1 2/3. Let's also simplify this guy here, 1 1/3. To write decimals for both of those, I'm not going to actually multiply them by, 3. Reason I'm doing that is that I see I'll get a 9 on the bottom. I know a 9 is a repeating decimal. So I can say that this is 1 and 0.6 repeating. The 6 out of 9 is 0.6 repeating. 1 and 3 out of 9 is 1 and 0.3 repeating. 3 out of 9 being 0.3 repeating. The only tricky one here then is my 1 and 1/6. I'm again going to have to long divide that 1 by 6. 6 goes into 1 0 times. 6 goes into 10 1 time, creating 6. Taken away leaves us with 4. 6 goes into 40. How many times? 6 times, creating 36. Taken away leaves us with a 4. You might notice we're in a loop now of 40s. Going in 6 times, leaving us with a 4. So we can say that this is 0.16 repeating. Notice the repeating bar is only over the 6 there, not the 1. As a mixed number, or an improper fraction I should say, 1 times 6 is 6, plus 1 is 7 out of 6. For D, let's do that one as well. We can say 1 times 3 is 3, plus 2 is 5/3. And for E, 1 times 3 is 3, plus 1 is 4/3. And that is all there is to it. So obviously a bunch of different rules for converting between different things. You have to be comfortable with looking at all the options that you have for a particular question and just getting started on one of them. So I hope that helped with your unit review.